when black heroes finally hit the big screen. Shaft, Superfly, and the Blaxploitation era that changed everything. There was a time in the early 1970s when something completely new started appearing in movie theaters across America. Films that put black people at the center of the story, not as maids or butlers or sidekicks, but as heroes, anti-heroes, detectives, and badasses who took control of their own destinies and didn't apologize for it. Movies like Shaft and Superfly and Foxy Brown featured black characters who were cool and confident and sexually powerful, who stood up to corrupt systems and won, who wore incredible clothes and moved through the world with style and swagger that made you want to be them. If you were young and black in the 1970s, walking into a theater and seeing John Shaft stride across the screen in his leather coat, or watching Priest navigate the streets in his custom Cadillac, was a revelation. For the first time, Hollywood was making movies specifically for black audiences, with black stars and black stories and soundtracks by black musicians that became as famous as the films themselves. These movies weren't perfect. They were criticized for glorifying pimps and drug dealers, for violence and stereotypes, for being exploitation rather than elevation. But they also gave black audiences something they'd rarely had before: the thrill of seeing themselves as the heroes of their own stories, powerful and complex and undeniably cool. And that representation, flawed as it sometimes was, mattered more than critics understood. Do you remember the first time you saw Shaft? Maybe you snuck into the theater because you were too young, or maybe your older siblings took you, or maybe you waited until it came to the neighborhood theater where tickets were cheaper. But you remember that opening scene, don't you? Isaac Hayes' iconic theme song starting with those wah-wah guitars, and then Richard Roundtree as John Shaft walking through Times Square in New York City, leather coat flowing behind him, turtleneck and leather jacket making him look impossibly cool, dodging traffic without even looking, completely confident and in control. That 3-minute opening sequence with Shaft just walking through the city while that incredible music played told you everything you needed to know. This was a black man who owned his space, who moved through a white world without fear or apology, who was the baddest cat in town and knew it. The tagline for Shaft said it all. Who's the black private dick that's a sex machine to all the chicks? Shaft. The movie's theme song, performed by Isaac Hayes, spelled out exactly who this character was: a complicated man that no one understood except his woman, a bad mother, shut your mouth, a cat who wouldn't cop out when danger was all about. That song became as famous as the movie, won an Academy Award, and established Isaac Hayes as a superstar. But more than that, it gave black audiences an anthem, a musical statement of black masculine pride and power that felt revolutionary in 1971. Shaft was directed by Gordon Parks, a legendary black photographer and filmmaker who brought visual style and dignity to a story that could have been just another detective movie. The plot was straightforward. John Shaft, a private detective, is hired to find a kidnapped girl and gets caught up in a war between the Italian mafia and Harlem's black organized crime. But what made the movie special wasn't the plot. It was the character of Shaft himself. He was nobody's servant, nobody's sidekick. He stood up to white cops who tried to intimidate him. He navigated both the white world downtown and the black world uptown with equal ease. He was sexually confident, attractive to women of all races without being desperate or submissive. He was intelligent and tough, able to think his way through problems and fight his way out when necessary. For black men watching Shaft, the character represented a fantasy of power and autonomy that was rare in real life and even rarer on screen. John Shaft didn't ask permission or apologize for taking up space. He wasn't trying to be respectable or acceptable to white people. He was just living his life, doing his job, being excellent at what he did, and demanding respect from everyone he encountered. That model of black masculinity, confident, independent, uncompromising, resonated deeply with audiences who were tired of seeing black men portrayed as subservient or non-threatening. The success of Shaft was immediate and massive. Made on a budget of about $500,000, it earned over $12 million at the box office, an enormous return that proved black audiences would turn out in huge numbers for films that spoke to them. More importantly, the film's success basically saved MGM Studios from bankruptcy and proved to Hollywood that there was money to be made in films targeting black audiences. This opened the floodgates for what would become known as the Blaxploitation era, a period from roughly 1971 to 1976, when dozens and eventually hundreds of films featuring black casts and aimed at black audiences were produced. Superfly, released in 1972, took a different and more controversial approach. Instead of a heroic detective, the protagonist was Youngblood Priest, a cocaine dealer in Harlem trying to make one last big score so he could get out of the drug game and go straight. Ron O'Neal played Priest with a combination of cool detachment and underlying desperation, a man who knew the life he was living was destroying his community but couldn't see a way out except through one final deal. Priest was stylish to the extreme, processed hair in a distinctive style, custom-made clothes, a customized Cadillac Eldorado, jewelry and fashion that made him look like black royalty moving through Harlem streets. The film's soundtrack, by Curtis Mayfield, was even more famous than the movie itself. Songs like Freddie's Dead and Pusher Man, and the title track Superfly, addressed the drug epidemic and its impact on black communities with more nuance and criticism than the film itself sometimes did. Mayfield's lyrics contain social commentary about the destruction drugs caused, about poverty and limited options, about the system that created the conditions where dealing drugs seemed like the only path to success for young black men. The soundtrack became one of the best-selling albums of the early 1970s and established Curtis Mayfield as a solo superstar. But Superfly was controversial in ways that Shaft wasn't. The protagonist was a drug dealer, and even though the film showed some of the negative consequences of that life, it also glamorized it. Priest looked incredibly cool, lived well, got beautiful women, drove an amazing car, wore incredible clothes. The message was muddled. Was the film criticizing the drug trade or making it look attractive? For young black men watching, especially those living in communities devastated by drugs, the glamorous portrayal of a drug dealer as hero was potentially dangerous, suggesting that dealing was a path to respect and success rather than destruction. This tension between representation and responsibility, between giving black audiences the heroes they wanted and being careful about what kinds of behavior were being glorified, defined the debate around blaxploitation films. The term blaxploitation itself was controversial, coined by the NAACP and other civil rights organizations who worried that these films were exploiting black audiences and communities, using blackfaces to sell tickets while promoting negative stereotypes and harmful messages. Films like The Mac, 1973, About a Pimp, Coffee, 1973, and Foxy Brown, 1974, starring Pam Grier as a woman seeking revenge, Cleopatra Jones, 1973, about a glamorous secret agent, and dozens of others followed the success of Shaft and Superfly. They shared certain characteristics: black protagonists who were tough and resourceful, urban settings, funky soundtracks by black musicians, stylish clothes and cars, violence and sexuality, and plots that often involved standing up to corrupt white authority figures or criminals. Pam Grier became the era's biggest female star, playing strong women who could fight and shoot as well as any man, who were sexually confident and powerful, who took revenge on those who wronged them or their communities. Her films like Coffee and Foxy Brown gave black women heroes they rarely saw on screen. Women who weren't victims or love interests but active agents of their own stories, capable of incredible violence in service of justice or revenge. For young black women watching, seeing Pam Grier kick ass and take names was empowering, showing that women could be action heroes too. The fashion and style of blaxploitation films became iconic and influential. The big afros, the platform shoes, the bell-bottoms and leather coats, the wide-brimmed hats and flashy jewelry. This was peak 1970s black style, exaggerated and heightened for cinematic effect, but rooted in real fashion trends in black communities. Young people tried to dress like the characters they saw on screen, adopting the style and swagger even if they couldn't fully live the lifestyle. The films became fashion shows as much as action movies, displaying black cool and creativity in ways that mainstream white culture had never acknowledged or celebrated. The soundtracks were crucial to the film's success and cultural impact. Isaac Hayes, Curtis Mayfield, James Brown, Earth, Wind & Fire, and other black musicians created music specifically for these films, and in many cases the soundtracks were more successful and longer-lasting than the movies themselves. This music became the soundtrack to the 1970s for Black America, playing at parties and on radio stations, sampled decades later by hip-hop artists who recognized the genius of these compositions. The funky, horn-heavy, groove-oriented sound became synonymous with the era and with black pride and style. But the criticisms of blaxploitation films were serious and came from respected voices in the black community. The NAACP and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference organized protests against these films, arguing that they promoted negative stereotypes about black people, that black men were violent criminals, and that black women were hypersexualized objects. They worried that these films were made by white producers and directors who were making money by selling harmful images of black life to black audiences. They pointed out that while the films featured black actors and black music, the profits mostly went to white-owned studios and white executives. Jesse Jackson and other civil rights leaders spoke out against the films, organizing boycotts and protests. They argued that the films were setting back the progress that had been made in changing how black people were portrayed in media. After decades of fighting against stereotypes of black people as criminals and hypersexual beings, these films seemed to be reinforcing exactly those stereotypes, just with bigger budgets and black stars. The concern was that white audiences would watch these films and have their racist assumptions confirmed, while black audiences would internalize these images as aspirational rather than cautionary. The debate split black communities. Younger people, particularly working-class black youth, largely loved the films and defended them. They argued that seeing black people as powerful protagonists, even flawed ones, was better than not seeing black people on screen at all. They pointed out that white films had always shown white criminals and anti-heroes, from gangster films to westerns to war movies, without anyone worrying that these films were harming white people's image. Why should black films be held to a different standard? Why couldn't black people enjoy genre entertainment the same way white people did? Older, middle-class black people and civil rights leaders tended to be more critical. They had spent their lives fighting against racist stereotypes and working for respectability and acceptance. The idea that black people would embrace films showing pimps and drug dealers as heroes seemed like a betrayal of everything they had worked for. They worried about the message these films sent to young black people and to white America about what black culture valued and celebrated. This tension between representation and respectability, between enjoying flawed but powerful black characters and demanding positive, uplifting portrayals, has never been fully resolved and continues in debates about black media today. The same arguments that were made about blaxploitation films in the 1970s are made about gangster rap, about reality television, about any media that shows black people in complex, controversial, or negative lights. Do you remember going to see these movies at the theater? The theaters in black neighborhoods were packed for blaxploitation films, creating communal viewing experiences where audiences talked back to the screen, cheered for the heroes, booed the villains, laughed and gasped, and engaged with the films in ways that made moviegoing a participatory experience. The energy in those theaters was electric, with everyone invested in seeing these black characters triumph against the forces arrayed against them. The films also provided employment for black actors, directors, writers, and crew members who had been largely shut out of Hollywood. Suddenly, there were opportunities to work in film, to develop craft and build careers, to tell stories even if those stories had to fit into certain formulas and expectations. Directors like Gordon Parks Jr., and others got chances to make films. Writers and cinematographers and editors developed their skills. This infrastructure and experience would be crucial for the next generation of black filmmakers. But the blaxploitation era was relatively short-lived. By the mid-1970s, The formula had become tired and predictable. Too many low-quality films trying to cash in on the trend flooded the market. The criticism from civil rights organizations intensified. Hollywood began to pull back from making these films as their profitability declined and the backlash grew. By 1976 or 1977, the era was essentially over, though its influence would continue. The impact on Black culture, however, was lasting. These films created icons and images that would be referenced and reimagined for decades. The figure of the cool Black detective, the stylish anti-hero, the powerful Black woman taking revenge. These archetypes established in Blaxploitation films showed up again and again in later Black cinema. John Singleton's Shaft remake in 2000 with Samuel L. Jackson was a direct descendant. Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown, 1997, starring Pam Grier, was an homage to her Blaxploitation roles. Films like Black Dynamite, 2009, parodied and celebrated the genre simultaneously. Hip-hop culture in particular drew heavily from Blaxploitation aesthetics. Early rappers sampled the soundtracks, adopted the fashion and style, referenced the films and characters in their lyrics. The swagger and confidence, the rejection of respectability, the celebration of street life and outlaw status that characterized much of gangster rap came directly from Blaxploitation's example. Snoop Dogg's persona owes a debt to Priest from Superfly. Ice-T and Ice Cube's tough, uncompromising screen presence connects back to the Blaxploitation heroes. Even Beyoncé's video for Why Don't You Love Me and Austin Powers' parody character, Foxy Cleopatra, show the lasting cultural influence. Looking back, Blaxploitation films represented a complicated moment in Black cultural history. They were exploitation in the sense that they followed formulas designed to make money, that they sometimes trafficked in stereotypes, that they were often more interested in style than substance. But they were also revolutionary in giving Black audiences heroes who looked like them, in creating space for Black actors and filmmakers, in showing that films targeting Black audiences could be commercially successful, in contributing to the visual and musical vocabulary of Black culture. The debate about whether these films helped or hurt Black people, whether they were empowering or degrading, whether they should be celebrated or criticized, continues. The truth is probably that they were both, simultaneously empowering and problematic, groundbreaking and exploitative, culturally important and sometimes harmful. They gave Black audiences something they desperately wanted and needed: representation, heroes, style, entertainment that spoke to their experiences and sensibilities, but they also raised serious questions about what kinds of Black stories should be told and how they should be told. For the young Black people who watched these films in the 1970s, they remain part of their cultural memory and identity. The music, the fashion, the characters, the moments of Black triumph on screen, these shaped how a generation understood Black possibility and Black cool. Whether you think the films were ultimately positive or negative, their impact is undeniable. They changed what was possible in Hollywood, proved that Black audiences mattered, created cultural touchstones that still resonate today. Do you remember watching Blaxploitation films? Which ones were your favorites? How did seeing Black heroes on screen make you feel? Do you think these films were empowering or harmful, or both? What impact did they have on your sense of Black identity and pride?